how is that working out in Russia regarding the how does the propaganda? I'm not sure how well you are oriented on Western propaganda, but I would like to kind of hear
I, as I
how is that?
mentioned earlier, and I live in the European Union in Southern Europe. I won't specify, but yes, I used to live in Russia. Um Russia is doing its own propaganda, but as far as I'm concerned, and I'm seeing in news here, it's no different from the Western one. I mean, everyone has its propaganda, and everyone tells its story. I think that people at least buy it from both sides, as I have seen, and I think the Russians will keep fighting indefinitely. I think Putin just went all in, and we're first like, well, okay, we might not want to fight, but more and more people are joining, and I think we are will be fighting until the bitter end. The only thing I see Russian losing, the only this conflict is the collapse of its government. I
Did
don't
I
think.
understand you correctly? You're saying that you are observing that Russia is increasing militarization, like quite
Yes,
significantly. Like there's a lot of volunteers because I remember that Putin at some point had to make a public announcment regarding the partial mobilization.
I think today in a news channel, I don't remember which one, they were about the volunteers were presented in media, and but they were volunteers carrying, food and etc. And there were like 30,000 of them, so there are a lot of people. And also, don't forget that the territories near Ukraine, we have relatives in Ukraine. So whoever we like it or not, we help them. However, with any means, and if it's a little hard situation, but Russians are with Putin and his war or special military operation, whatever you want to call it. I think they will be fighting for the bitter end.
in
Do you
Ukraine.
often observe that
Didn't
that
Putin have a
Western
speech
propaganda
recently
is
where
used?
he?
Huh?
Sorry, Leo.
Oh, sorry. Didn't
Leo?
Putin have a speech recently where he said that there would be no more mobilizations after the last one?
Uh, you know, put you know you I don't really fully support Putin, but he's a guy who is really evasive. He may say one thing, when if something goes wrong, when may say another. But as far as I'm concerned, and my family were, tell us that people are not giving up on war, and they will be continue supporting its government.
My understanding is
Uh,
that they are preparing likely for another mobilization. They are
Maybe.
prepared, but they just waiting for the instruction to do it. But
Yes.
definitely the entire structure is now prepared, because the first one is just try and error to get everything right. Because
Mm.
if we all know that 300,000 troops is not enough to conquer Ukraine, it's just not enough. You need at least 1 million troops, which is why I repeated quite a number of times that I'm expecting at least two more partial mobilization of 300,000 each, and so it might take another half a year before that will to go through these two mobilizations, because it's just not enough. 300,000 is still not enough, even though
I
it's already
I
way
think
more than it was before.
if
why do you think? So you think that it basically necessitates, for the sake of optics, it necessitates Russia to actually do make some offensives where they make some more significant territorial gains, just to kind of have an excuse for when let's say the Ukrainians make another move again, then will be like or new weapon systems or whatever, they can then justify the second mobilization.
Maybe, I'm not sure, because it feels a lot like Putin is a very conservative guy. Regardless what the Western propaganda like to say, he's so slow, so conservative. He don't rush into things, so it feels to me like he's just holding back, and he want to see what's the reaction of the West. So okay, I'm going to do 300,000 first, and then we will have some small victories on the ground. We see how it goes, see how the West reacts. If they're going to tone down, then they're going to have negotiation and they can end the war. But if they don't, they continue to escalate. Maybe they like all the talk about F-16s and M1 Abrams and whatever. Okay, so then they will do another mobilization. They just ramp up, because how many Russian soldiers do Ukraine need to kill before they can win the war? Easily 500,000 at least. How are you going to kill 500,000 soldiers? Do the West even have that kind of guts to support so much military for Ukraine, so much ammunition and weaponry to kill 500,000 soldiers?
Oh,
It's
but can the
unimaginable.
Ukrainians even, but in the long run, can the Ukrainians even set it up? I mean, they have a tremendous depth already. Much of their critical infrastructure is getting destroyed, and this, of course, will continue with bridges and like, they will start getting in tatters. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a battle on the battlefield anymore, because no matter how much of an army you, in theory, could muster, you really can't do much about it. Like, how are you going to be training without electricity? How are you going to be like? There's going to be so many issues that are complicating. Like, up until now, Ukraine has had it on like tutorial mode, not even easy mode, it's tutorial mode. They are allowed to have training facilities outside of their border. They have let most of their infrastructure been alone, right? And now the Russians are increasingly starting to do like what NATO usually does. They go for infrastructure full blooded, and they just smash it completely. And they go for all other doors. But basically, they're now just like, okay, fine. If this is how it's going to be, we are going to be doing it just like you guys do, and we'll see how tough you are now.
But what we're seeing now is that on the Europe side, like just I think Alan or who say that there's no answer into how do Ukraine is going to win this war or negotiate in any way that is beneficial to Ukraine. So there's zero. So which means that the only solution is still military now. But so why I say 500,000? Because 500,000 is hardly enough. It's not even like 10% of what Russian military is, with all the reserves and everything. But 500,000 soldiers killed is enough to create political crisis. But to kill 500,000 soldiers is so hard. How I don't even think that the Russians have even lost 50,000 troops, even with the Donbass troops counted in.
Man, you're chewing up that Russian propaganda, man. The Russians lost.
No, I just said maybe. No, because if we believe the octopus, the Ukrainians only lost 100,000.
Right.
Octopus as in Wusula. So if Ukraine lose 100,000 troops died. Russia's side are not likely to be that number. It's probably lower, maybe between 50,000 to 80,000, including mainly the people who died are the Donbass troops, Donbass militias.
Well, if it's 50 to 80,000, they went in.
This is why I kind of question the 500,000. I don't see that necessarily being a prerequisite that 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers have to die, because there are so many other tensions building up over time.
No, I'm talking about Russian troops have to die.
No, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? If we're talking about Russian casualties, just do the math. Russia came in with 200,000 soldiers, right, at the beginning, right? 250, 200,000, something like that. If they've lost, let's be super, super liberal with it and say they've lost like 90,000, 80,000 soldiers, wounded and dead. That would fundamentally make that original 200,000, 250,000 troop deployment combat ineffective. You cannot lose a quarter of your soldiers, right, or more, almost half of your soldiers, and still be combat effective. So to see Russia...
Well, I mean, they could be rotating troops around from other borders, and then they could masquerade it in some way, because we're not talking about passive mobilization. We're talking about reinforcements, which are kind of a little bit more
I haven't even gotten to the mobilization yet. Because if we get to mobilization, that's an extra 300,000 troops, right? If you're backing
which is nothing for Russia. That's like that's such a small percentage.
Drop in the
not even that is right.
We are not counting the volunteers. We are not counting the churches.
That's why I also get the impression, like, if Russia were to actually go for any sort of, because the optics will be then for territorial things, right? But the optics can backfire rather easily with high casualties. However, Russia is such a big country. I'm kind of suspecting they might be able to kind of mask the effect of that towards most of the population to an extent that they can actually take it if necessary. So they might do it. But I think, like, from a strategic point of view, they kind of seem to be sitting so well that they don't actually why would it only be committing then 80,000 or 300,000? They want to be prepared. They want to lower the amount of casualties. And then maybe it's also like we don't really need to defeat Ukraine completely, because at some point we can have them come to us, because in the end, we can have them come begging to us for what terms are acceptable. Okay, like
Well,
whatever.
that goes back to like the wave tactics, right? We were talking about how the Ukrainian tactics and the Ukrainian losses are getting mounted so high because they don't have the coordination among their forces. It's so where do the Russian casualties come from? Are they also using these human wave tactics? Because I don't see it.
So
No, they don't.
I think Vaughn
that's
wanted to make a point.
that's my question.
Vaughn's been wanting to make a point since 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, as far as the, never mind. Go. I'll think about it again. Just give me a sec.
So that's why I was saying for Ukraine. So let's look from the Ukrainian perspective. So Ukraine is fighting against effectively a superpower. So how are you going to win against a superpower? The only way is you incur unacceptable casualties. So that's like how the United States lost the Vietnam War, because it's just too much. So the number I'm picking up from the air is 500,000. How do you kill 500,000 Russian soldiers? Because the Russian military with the reserve and everything is ridiculously huge. So you have to kill at least so 500,000. I don't even think is 10% of their total troop.
500,000 is like 4%, I think.
Yeah. So this, but you see, if you can kill 500,000, you have a chance. Ukraine have a chance. But how do you even kill 500,000? They are hardly. They definitely not killing 100,000 at this moment. Another 5 times more. It's going to be so difficult for the Ukrainians. So I do not know how they're going to win this war. This is the problem Ukraine is facing.
May I add something?
Speaking of which, Poland,
I was going to say. I was just going to say, as far as the Russian casualties go, I mean, when you think about the amount of surveillance platforms that NATO has in Ukraine, satellites, if there was any proof that there was high Russian casualties, that shit would be blasted everywhere, because they could show satellite footages of Russian military cemeteries. They could show communication intercepts of casualty reports. I mean, we saw some of that stuff early in the war where they supposedly had radio transmissions and cell phone conversations. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, if there was 100,000 Russian casualties or 50,000, there's no way Russia could hide that. And NATO or in the U.S. or whoever, intelligence services, could easily put that out there and embarrass Russia.
Not just that, the Russian civilians in Russia will be in revolt.
There's no way you can hide that.
It's like half of the soldiers from my village going to the special military operation is dead. They will definitely put it on social media. There's no way you can hide something like this, which is why I called a number, something that is quite huge. But it's not enough to kill off Russia, but it will force Russia into a.
But speaking of then, how would that apply for Ukraine though? Because when the same is there, I mean, my entire unit was blown to smithereens and stuff like that. You say like the Russians couldn't do that. I mean, they cannot even use their cell phones while in combat, so there will be quite a lot of limitations they have, only permitted footage and so forth. So like, why would because the same logic would then sort of automatically apply for Ukraine, no? And as far as I can get it, Ukraine is like their population is like 40 million. Is that correct?
It started at 40 million.
Even less without.
Right, and minus the occupied areas, around 20-something million, and if they have lost at least 100,000, let's just be generous, at least 100,000, then that will, and this is as an age group. Let's say it's like, okay, maybe not 18 to 24, but maybe larger. But so it may not constitute such a large percentage, but it is still. I would. My math in the head right now wouldn't be working quite well. I'm not sure if someone could do the math there. But I think the percent, because aren't we then running into quite a high percentage, like significantly higher than Russia's 500,000 that you said hypothetically?
Yeah, proportionally, it's so much higher. It's so much greater.
Yeah, because when I say half a million, right, that is, I'm talking about the bare minimum Ukraine will have to reach to even win the war at all. I'm not in actual reality, like you say that. Let's say Ukraine will be facing the same problem. The Ukrainians might have to kill 2-3 million before they.
Right, but how would you flip it the other way around? Like how many does Ukraine have to lose before they have definitely lost? in that sense.
Oh.
Because if you put that number, that's because that's the same as saying 500,000 means 500,000 Russia loses. Well, what is the Russia for Ukraine? What does the casualty rate need to be for Ukraine? Because sure, there might be the defenders, and there may be a lot more impetus for them to
Well,
kind of
that's when
they
it
can
goes
have a higher ratio. But where would you set
break
that?
down into who's allowing who to do what? If I'm sure there are parts of Ukraine who, if they want the war to end right now, it's like, again, as you were being generous, 100,000 is too much for them, right? That's a lot of people like that. But there are other people who will. There are a lot of people and a lot of organizations that will fight literally to the last Ukrainian in some definitions. Like, it just depends who you ask.
But wouldn't the thing with the casualties of people in social media, right? We're talking about people who are forcefully conscripted into much more. I mean, I'm not sure if the Russians even conscript at all. Maybe the militias, perhaps, if you want to. But the Ukrainians definitely conscript, right? And so we're talking about like, oh, Russian being demoralized. Well, fine, because they are the invading force. Naturally, they will have a lower threshold for morale. But at the same time, the defender is not immune either. And with the 100,000 being the kind of a generous number, that's still a very high number. And these are conscripts, quite a lot of them, and they are just regular people like all of us, right? Or maybe not all of us, but some of us are professionals. But I have been a conscript, right? Like I know that while I know how to shoot a gun and shit like that, I know some basics with whatever field I was trained in then and there. I am no match to a professional. Like if you put like a 1,000 of me against 100 professional, we will be wiped down. We will maybe be lucky shots with a few, right? And especially we were talking about advanced equipment, this kind of and so again, we alluding back to like where's the morale threshold for Russia? Well, fine, let's say 500,000. That seems like a fairly impossible task. I don't see how they can do that. But then again, what will be the threshold for Ukraine? Because they seem to like, you know, uh, it's purely speculative, of course, right? But like, where would you guys opine that that would be a reasonable one? Maybe we should do some math on that part.
A million.